What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another edition of the Dolphins In Depth podcast. I'm Daniel Oyefusi. That's David Neal. Thank you so much for tuning in. Quick reminder before we start, make sure to subscribe to the Miami Herald YouTube page, like, share, comment below. Ladies and gentlemen, we are here. It is week one. Dolphins, Patriots, Hard Rock Stadium, Sunday, 1 p.m. The Dolphins. There we go. There we go. We needed a grand fanfare to lead that in. After a hectic, whirlwind, frantic, fun offseason, the Dolphins are finally hitting the field for games that matter. They kick off the 2022 season against their arch rival, New England Patriots. I'm excited for this. There's been a lot of talk back and forth about the Dolphins, about the Patriots, about whether the Dolphins have done enough to kind of measure up with the top teams in the AFC East, in the AFC, and the NFL at large. And now we get to finally see if that is true. To Mike McDaniel, the first game of the Mike McDaniel era. We'll see all that on Sunday, and I'm really excited. And we're going to get right into it with some interesting news on New England's part. The Patriots are actually already in South Florida. They've made their way down to Florida in anticipation of that season opener. The Patriots announced that they will be practicing at Palm Beach Atlantic University, about an hour north of Miami, kind of trying to get acclimated to this heat. Man, it's hot out here. It is hot in South Florida. Interesting. I've never heard of a team doing this. Sometimes you hear about teams going to the West Coast early and trying to get acclimated to the time change, but not a team traveling to the state that they're playing in, not like a day before, but 4 or 5 days before, to try to get acclimated to that heat. Mike McDaniel said that it makes sense. He's not sure, exactly how much it's gonna help, but nonetheless, the Dolphins will be getting ready for their preparation. David, I gotta ask you, what is Bill Belichick up to?
I mean,
he's a tricky one. He's a tricky one. Tyree said he's always got something up his sleeve, so this might be another thing.
Maybe this just puts him into place to do some spying somewhat.
I'm not gonna lie, that came into my mind. I was just like, we start seeing like airplanes and helicopters and drones above.
Drones, right? Anything flying in Miami Gardens really probably should be shot at. The airport's not near there. I think Denver did this before. Funny enough, Nick Saban's first game, I want to say.
Really? Okay.
Yeah.
Got a little history lesson. I like this.
It didn't work. It didn't work. they faded very badly in the fourth quarter, and the Dolphins kind of pulled away there at the end after controlling much of the game. So you don't know how much that the 1 o'clockness of it, the midday heat really helped. Can teams? I don't know if you ever really get used to the extremes. Like the teams who play in the bitter cold, they say, the dome teams can't win outside in the bitter cold, or the teams from the south, Tampa Bay for years, they didn't win a game for under 40 degrees for, I want to say, 26 years, their first 26 years as a franchise. But in all honesty, the players are from where they're from. The extremes nobody's good in. Nobody's. These players the Dolphins aren't that used to doing, playing a hard NFL game straight through in the heat. They go through training camp here.
Yeah, they've had some training camps. They've had all-season workouts. They've had a couple months. They've had a couple months at least.
That has water breaks.
They're gonna get some water on the sideline.
They just stop, and it's like, okay, this is not getting hit. Play after play after play, and it's not an NFL game. It's just not. And so, are the Dolphins probably more used to it than the Patriots are? Sure.
I mean,
People to get used to
it
it?
gets pretty humid up there in the northeast of Boston area. I will say I was just up there. It gets hot, man. It gets humid too.
It gets hot and humid there, but it's not
Yeah, it's
this
not
brand.
South Florida. It's not
It's
South
not this
Florida.
brand,
Yeah,
And I don't think the Patriots are going to. I think it helps more mentally. The Patriots say, okay, we're going to go down there and get used to it. And like,
yeah,
okay, we're going to get used to it. No, you're not. No, you're not.
yeah.
Any more than going to Green Bay in January. If you have to go there, going there a few days early is going to help you if game day turns up and it's -2 as a high. No,
That's true.
it's not going to help you. You're not going to be used to it. They're not going to be used to it. So, but I do think does it play a little bit to the Dolphins' advantage? If there's an advantage to anybody, it's to the Dolphins. This is a mind thing for Belichick.
That's what I was gonna say. There is something to be said about the mind aspect of it. That sometimes the mind breaks down before the body. It's like I
Oh yeah.
remember
Oh yeah.
when I was doing football workouts in my illustrious junior varsity career at Tufts University, go Generals. Whenever we did summer workouts, like they would like my coach and everyone would tell you like the mind breaks down before the body. So
Right.
like the mind will tell you that you can't go before the body really like shuts down and tells you can't
Right.
go. So there is something to be said about the mental aspect of it.
Oh
Um,
yeah.
I'll cite something Mike McDaniel said on Monday where like does it help? I mean, of course, it does help to get maybe a little bit acclimated, but at the end of the day, like if the Dolphins don't execute their plays right or the Patriots don't execute their plays right, like will the Heat really make that much of a difference? And even like I'll kind of go further, like does the Heat really, and as we kind of transition into some of our picks and our thoughts on this game, like will the Heat really matter that much? When the Dolphins have like much better skill position players and much better defense. Like it doesn't really matter that much. Maybe Bill Belichick is up to something. Maybe on Monday we will be saying, or this next Tuesday when we record this, we'll be saying Bill Belichick did it again. That wily son of a gun. I don't know. Maybe, but I don't think so. It is interesting though. But as we kind of transition into more Dolphins Patriots talk, I want to focus on the quarterbacks, the former Alabama teammates, Tua Tagovailoa of the Dolphins, Mac Jones of the Patriots, and I just find this talk between Tua and Mac Jones kind of fascinating because I'm on Twitter a lot, obviously for work purposes, but I do a lot of reading. I see a lot of stuff, but I don't say much. And I just find the back and forth between Dolphins and Patriots fans just like hilarious when they compare the two young quarterbacks who still have a lot of ways to go, a lot of growth to be had. Um, but it's like I think it's funny when I see like I'll start with the Patriots side where they're like, oh, Mac is so much better than Tua. I'd rather have Mac than Tua. And I look at I've watched the season's worth of Tua. I've watched a handful of games of Mac Jones at this point. I've seen him up close twice for when the Dolphins played the Patriots last year. And it's funny because I look at the two quarterbacks, and I've said it a lot throughout the offseason, but I see them as very, very similar quarterbacks. Quarterbacks who don't have the biggest arm, maybe the arm talent isn't in the top echelon of quarterbacks. They're not really extremely athletic guys. Tua can move around and run a little bit. He can scramble a little bit. They're accurate quarterbacks who I think that to some extent have to be kind of propped up by the pieces around them. Of course, every quarterback has to be propped up by the pieces around them to be successful, but maybe Tua and Mac Jones more than others. So I just find it kind of funny when like people are kind of putting Mac Jones in a tier above Tua or Tua in a tier above Mac Jones. I'm like, I don't know. I think they're very similar quarterbacks. At this point, I think that I'd rather have Tua's situation. But if you kind of flip the guys, I mean, I think that like flip their situations, I think you see
Right.
similar levels of success. What do you think about Tua, Mac Jones, two quarterbacks?
Yeah, I think you got it right. I think you could if you exchange the teams, swapped quarterbacks, I think you get the same result in each place. I don't think the Dolphins offense would change that much with Mac Jones. I don't think the Patriots offense would change that much with Tua. And I don't think Tua developmentally is that far ahead of Mac Jones. If he is ahead of Mac
I
Jones.
mean, some people,
I think he is.
most people will say that Mac Jones is better than Tua, but I think that I would say he had a better season.
Yeah,
I would say he had a better season.
I don't know that he's better than Tua. I really don't. And
That's
I'm
my
not a
point.
big
That's my point. That's what I'm
right.
saying. That's what I'm saying.
I'm not a big, Tua is, the next coming, the next Marino or hell, the next, I don't know, next Bob Greasy even. I mean, I just, I think that everything's still out on him.
Both of those guys as well. I mean, Mac Jones.
Right,
Mac Jones had a good year. People say he went to a Pro Bowl. He was like the fifth ultimate. Like
right, right.
I don't care about that.
Yeah.
He had a good season for a rookie quarterback given the circumstances.
And yeah, I don't know. That offensive coordinator situation up there, that's a little funky too.
That sounds like what the Dolphins had last year.
Yeah,
Brian Flores. It did not work at all.
Yeah, yeah.
We had passes in the end zone and all types of stuff. But that's in the past.
Worked like your weed sweet smoking uncle. I mean, so yeah, I don't. That to me is a little funky. In the first real game with that. And basically a very good defense. I think I like the Dolphins defense better than I like the Patriots defense. And
more importantly, you like the Dolphins defense facing the Patriots offense.
Yeah, I mean that's right. That's what I'm saying. Right. I misspoke.
I got you.
Right. I always hate those matchups. Who's got the better court? Who's got the better white? Like,
depends on who they're going up against. Yeah.
Tell me who they're going up against. Tell me that matchup. So yeah, I like the Dolphins defense matchup against the Patriots offense better than I like the way the Patriots D will match up against the Dolphins. Though I don't think the Dolphins are where they want to be. Obviously, we've talked about this before. I don't think they're where they want to be with their running game yet. But I think it was against, the soft scrubs of Philadelphia. But, I think we saw a little bit better last week. I think this is going to be an interesting game because a team with Belichick involved in the coaching he's going to make a big effort at taking away at least one element, and he's making you beat him.
Well, what will that element be? So if you're in the mind of Bill Belichick right now, what is he taking away?
I take away Tyreek. I try to take away Tyreek. Okay. Because now I don't know how much success I don't think he had that. I mean,
Tyreek Hill has had a lot of success
doing that.
He's had a good deal of success. He scored 5 touchdowns in 5 games, including the playoffs. I think he's averaging around 110 receiving yards per game, per our own Barry Jackson, who wrote about that a couple of days ago. Now, of course, as he pointed out, that was with the Chiefs, Patrick Mahomes, Andy Reid, that whole factory.
Right. And yet, Travis Kelce tight end.
Exactly. The whole factory.
Right, exactly. So, but if I'm Belichick, I'm going to try to take away. I want to take away the chunk, take away the boom. Make the Dolphins. And I think he did it. I mean, you go all the way back to when he was the DC and the Giants playing the Bills and their K-gun at the time, which was rolling. Everybody's rolling up big yards, big points. Andre Reed doing these short crosses, running like hell. They're rolling up 40, 50 points a game in the playoffs. And he's like, okay, on offense, you shorten the game, but on defense, hit him in short zones, no big chunk plays. And it worked to an extent. Thurman Thomas had his, but he also used it. Same thing with the greatest show on turf when they faced them. I mean, it's the same theory.
I don't know if any of those guys. I mean, of course, I'm not never disrespect the old guard, but I don't know if any of those guys had speed like Tyreek Hill. It's different.
No, but it's different. But there's a
game plan.
There's a game plan. None of those guys had sheer straight out burner speed. Then again, the Rams had like 3 guys.
Yeah, you're right.
Who were you know.
Yeah, I agree with
So
every hold on those
and
guys.
they had the game plan was okay. And they focused their game plan actually in that one on Marshall Faulk because they thought he was the key. But what he does that well is figure out what's the key to you blowing up with big plays and take that away, disrupt that. That is something his Belichick coach teams are always very good at. And I think this in this offense, it looks like, possibly the, kind of the layman observer here, that's your big boom is Tyreek Hill. So, or, whether it is a particular pattern or two, or whether it's just Hill himself, I think he's going to try to take away that and make the Dolphins, let's work their way down the field and, long drive and by gosh, hope, which, you hope you don't make a mistake. There's no penalty. You hope you don't fumble or sack or get behind the sticks, whatever. That's just what you do. Because if you don't take that away, it's going to hit you. It's going to hit you big. And the Dolphins have a good defense. And if the Patriots look up and they're down at some point 17-3.
This game is over. I mean, that's what happened. That's what happened in the season finale last year. And the Dolphins didn't have nearly close to the offense they had this year. The Dolphins went up by 2 touchdowns, 2 scores early, and I'm like, this game is over. And the game was pretty much over. Yeah. They made it a little close in the end, but no, that game was over. The Patriots just don't have the offense to match up.
Because they're not going to. Because on the other side, I don't think the Patriots. Although we've talked about the Dolphins cornerback issues.
Yeah.
I don't know if the Patriots are going to hit the Dolphins, have the capability to hit the Dolphins with the big play as much as the Dolphins have the ability to hit the Patriots with the big play.
That's fair.
Usually in the NFL these days,
you got to do that.
Yeah, whoever's going to be able to get more of the chunk or explosive plays or whatever you want to call them. That's the team's going to win.
So on the heels of that astute analysis, David J. Neal, I have to ask you, I have to put you on the spot for the first time on the Dolphins In Depth podcast. Okay. Picking the Dolphins or the Patriots.
Oh yeah, I'm picking the Dolphins. Oh yeah, even if I'll take the Dolphins. I'll give the points.
The points. I think they're about a field goal favorite. Some places 2.5.
Yeah.
Some places for that. Yeah.
I'll take the Dolphins. I think you're opening at home. You're gonna have a lot of them. Obviously that is a tremendous advantage, I think, for week one, especially you've got a lot of emotion coming in that stadium. New coach, new
offense, some new juice.
I think there's been a lot of emotion around the franchise the last week and a half.
Yeah.
And I think players are just looking, okay, let's get out there.
Let's put on a real show, a real performance.
Let's be able to release also.
Yeah.
Let's express ourselves with our play and express our emotion with our play.
Mm-hmm.
And I think they are in a great position to do that. And I mean, I would not be surprised if you get what I used to call them an old-fashioned Monday Night Football butt kickings.
We are on the same page. We are
Monday Night Football. You've been there like 10 years.
We are locked in.
They come there, the place is rocking and everything. The visiting team comes out.
And by like the second quarter, you're like, woof, what happened?
It's like 24-0. You're like, what the hell?
Man, we are on the same page.
Yeah, that's I think that's entirely possible. But I'm taking the Dolphins in this one.
Yeah, I have to agree with you. I'm going with the Dolphins as well. I was gonna say I would not be surprised if this is a blowout. I'm not gonna lie, I'm almost kind of expecting a blowout. Everything about these two teams has kind of told me and it's week one, so usually these games are close. Teams are feeling out each other. But man, I just feel like everything about this off season and the summer and training camp, it gives me the feel of two teams who are trending in different directions. You look at the Dolphins; they're adding talent across the board. The Patriots had an awfully quiet offseason. Last offseason was pretty busy for them. One of the the most busy off seasons. With the money that they spent. But this past off season, it's relatively quiet. They lost one of their top defenders and cornerback, J.C. Jackson. Um, Maryland grad, by the way. Just have to throw that out. So I don't know. I just don't. And obviously the questions about the offensive play caller. I mean, all reports seem to indicate that Matt Patricia, who was formerly a defensive coach, before his stint as Lions head coach, he's going to be calling plays, and he's never done that in his NFL career. He's never called offensive plays. And I keep on saying this, we're kind of transitioning into, what we're going to talk about on the other side of the break. But if this was not a Bill Belichick led team, if John Doe was the name of the Patriots head coach, if this was any other franchise in the NFL that didn't have the name Patriots, I don't think that we'd be giving them the benefit of the doubt. Obviously, you do have to give your respect to Bill Belichick because he is arguably the GOAT coach. I know a lot of Dolphins fans don't want to hear that, but one of the greatest coaches out there. I hear you. I'm not. I said arguably. I don't want anybody on my head. 50th anniversary of the 72 team.
I'm not even. Didn't grow up a Dolphins fan.
I don't want anybody on my
team. But Shula's man.
I hear you. That's why I said arguably, because there were some, but people in South Florida want to argue. But but you have to give your respect to Bill Belichick, obviously, because of the success he's had. But I think the talent disparity is just too much at some of the most important positions. And I'm not gonna lie, like I'm fully expect the Dolphins to start the Mike McDaniel era with a dub. And it would not surprise me if they win by multiple scores, because I just think that these are two teams who look to be headed in opposite directions.
It's and Matt Patricia calling me out,
Like again, I'm not gonna lie, like the Dolphins have their questions. I think that if they don't run the ball well, they could get in some disadvantageous situations in third and long. I think that they're still the Dolphins. I mean, the Patriots they don't have great wide receivers. They've got Devontae Parker in a trade from Miami this offseason. Jacoby Myers, guys like that. They don't have like a star-studded cast of receivers. But that opposite cornerback spot is something to watch. It is going to be Josh Warrior's first game, really, as like the autonomous defensive coordinator out of the shadow of Brian Flores. There are fair questions about how he's going to do. Obviously, he has some Patriots ties as well. But man, the questions there's things that I know for certain on both sides of the ball, and I know that the Patriots do not have a defense or offense that should strike fear into the hearts of the Dolphins defense. I mean, the defense, that you expect the Dolphins, or excuse me, the Patriots defense, you expect them to be coached well. But I think that, just the speed that the Dolphins have added, I think that they're going to find somebody to get the ball to. They might slow down Tyreek. I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I'm not worried about them hitting Tyreek deep. I mean, everything about this offense says it's going to be it's going to be 10 yards, and then what you can do afterwards. So if they can't get him 25 yards down the field, I don't think Mike McDaniel's going to care. I think he's going to say, hey, let's get you in a spot where you can outrun everybody and turn it into a 25-plus game. So yeah, I'm going with the Dolphins in this game, and I think that it's going to be a happy Monday in South Florida.
Yeah, I think so. And now, of course, if look, it's the NFL, and so
anything can happen.
We could be, you could couple early turnovers, and suddenly everybody like and then but I don't expect. One thing I don't expect out of the Patriots is I don't expect a lot of early sloppiness that you usually get early in the season from teams when they're really first getting going the first few weeks.
They won't beat themselves.
And if I had to say which team is more likely to have those kind of plays, those why the hell do you field that punt? Why muffing this play or getting the wrong, just inexplicable turnover. That I would say would be more likely to be the Dolphins. But if they avoid too many, if there's not 4 of those plays, 5 of those plays, I think the Dolphins, take this and they cover. But don't at me if you bet and you
Yeah,
and the
yeah. This is
Dolphins
not. Hold up.
do
Hold up.
not do that to me.
We
Don't
are
do that
not
to me.
giving out betting advice. We are just.
No, we're not. That's Greg Cody's
Yeah.
job.
Yeah. Read that. His previews, his picks.
The
But
upset
this
bird and
isn't.
all that. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's his
this
job.
isn't betting advice though. Just we have to put a disclaimer in the
Right.
post production. But yeah, for sure. We're both riding with the Dolphins this weekend. We're gonna take a short break. When we come back on the other side of things, we're gonna continue prediction time. We got Dolphins record predictions, AFC East record predictions, Super Bowl predictions. Do we have the Dolphins in or out of the playoffs? We're gonna find out next. Stay tuned. What's going on, everybody? I'm still here with David Neal on the Dolphins In Depth podcast, talking all things Dolphins and Dolphins Week 1 because your Miami Dolphins are kicking off Week 1 of the NFL season this Sunday against the New England Patriots at Hard Rock Stadium. David and I are both rolling with the Dolphins this week. We think that they're going to take care of business in the first game under Mike McDaniel, and we would not be surprised if there is a blowout. But we're going to go big picture now. We're going to talk Dolphins record predictions for the entire season. Quick note, we've got the special section that our sports staff worked very, very hard on. It comes out, I believe, September 8th. I have my record predictions in there. There's a whole bunch of good stuff, a whole bunch of great stories and whatnot. I know David worked hard on that as well. So you're gonna get an early sneak peek at my predictions. You guys can yell at me and throw tomatoes at me on Twitter. You can praise me. Depends on how you take my predictions. But I'm going to start. We know the Dolphins have a pretty tough early season slate with them starting the season against the Patriots and heading to Baltimore for the Ravens. Then they're coming back home to host the Bills, which should be a real litmus test before going to Bengals tonight to play the Bengals on Thursday Night Football. Then it starts to ease up a bit. You have games against the Jets, the Jets, the Vikings, the Lions, the Bears. But then when you get to December, you get a real tough slate with back-to-back West Coast road trip, playing the 49ers, playing the Los Angeles Chargers, and they come back to play the Bills and host the Green Bay Packers on Christmas. So it's a pretty tough schedule for Mike McDaniel in his first season. And I'm just gonna get it out the way. I'm predicting the Dolphins to go 10-7, 10 wins, 7 losses, and just barely missing the playoffs. I know a lot of Dolphin fans are probably, closing out the tab right now. They're sick to their stomach. I had them at 11 wins. Full disclaimer. I had them at 11 wins when I had to turn in my predictions for our special section, which I believe was like a week or so ago.
Yeah.
But I made my predictions with the caveat that I was fully expecting Byron Jones to be ready for the start of the season and not be on the PUP list and miss the first 4 games of the season. After that, went in, took the red pen, scratched some stuff out. I changed it to 10-7. I do think that I'm very bullish on this team. I think they're going to be very, very competitive. I think that although we're in my prediction, we're only going to see a 1-game, improvement. I think they're going to be very competitive, especially with some of the better teams in the NFL. I think that they're going to be more competitive with the Bills. They're going to be competitive with the Bengals, with the Ravens, those types of teams. But I just think that, the loss of Byron Jones for the first 4 games of the year, I think that's going to be something that kind of resonates and kind of hurts this defense a little bit. I mean, they trust those cornerbacks so much. I think it is going to hurt them. I think that December slate is going to be a little too tough, having to play the 49ers, the Chargers, the Bills, the Packers. I mean, that's a tough slate. I think they're going to be in a good spot because they're going to, rack up some wins in October, when the schedule just kind of to lighten up. But in the end, I just think it's going to be a little too tough. I think that they have the top end talent to compete week in and week out. But I do have some questions about depth. I do have some questions about, the sustainability of the offense in terms of, putting up 30 points a game. And they might not need that if the defense, plays to the caliber that we saw late last season. But again, there's some questions on the defense. And I just think that, again, in some of those matchups against the best teams in the NFL, they'll be competitive, but they'll come up a little bit short. I think maybe they're a year. I think that a lot of people perceive them as, their moves signal that they're a championship contender. But I think that they are a year away from actually realizing that. I think that Tua will have an improved season. I think he'll have his best season to date. But again, in a competitive AFC, I mean, there's a ton of talented teams. I think the Dolphins just miss out. David Neal, the floor is yours.
I think is because with boy, I was just going over it to my head. Uh I think they do well against the NFC. I like the matchups in the NFC. Um and I think they split with the Patriots.
I have that as well.
They split with they sweep the Jets.
I have that as well. Okay.
Let's see. They get the North. So they get was it Ravens, Bengals, Steelers,
And the
Browns.
Browns, but they get the Browns without Watson, so I think that's
Right.
a
No,
winnable game.
I take them with over the Browns anyway. So I think they go 2-2, 1-3 there. Boy, yeah, they're right.
I need a record prediction. I need a.
It's as the math was coming out. I think the math came out to 10-7.
10-7. But do you have them? Is that enough in your eyes? Will that be enough? I know me personally, I did. I have my various websites that I use to do the math and whatnot. And the website that I used, it had them on the outside looking in because of some losses to key AFC teams like the Bengals and the Chargers and the Ravens.
Right. You lose the tiebreakers.
But in your eyes, just kind of thinking about it, do you think 10 wins is enough in the AFC this year?
Boy.
I think that's the real question. Like, what is the target? How many wins do the Dolphins need to ensure that they're in the playoffs?
Well, how many to ensure they're in? Oh, definitely. It needs to be at least 11.
At least 11.
Yeah. 11.
And 11 probably won't get you the AFC East because the Bills are that good.
No. I'm assuming the Bills are going to, I'm thinking the Bills 13-4, 14-3, somewhere in there. And you're going to have your other division winners, and then so you're getting into
wild card. It's like
wild card, and how many does the AFC West send?
Man, I think the AFC West might send 3.
Exactly.
There's 7 spots in 3 wild cards, so I think that there's a good chance they could send. They're gonna beat up on each other, but I think that they're gonna be like good enough that they're gonna kind of sweep when they get out the division.
They go hurt everybody else's feelings.
So
so that leaves like one spot for you to beat out everybody else in the South and everybody else in the North. And
I think they'll be fine. I don't think there'll be a lot of competition in the South. I'll say that. I think whoever wins the division, they'll be the only representative. I don't have a lot of trust in the Jags, Texans. I'm not really high on the Titans. So I think that they're really competing with the team. They're competing with teams from the AFC West and probably whoever comes in second place in the AFC North. And the question again is, how many wins do you need to ensure that you are like definitely in one of those wildcard spots if we're not giving them the AFC East crown?
I think they're. I don't know. I don't like the. I do like Browns and Steelers. I think they beat the Browns and Steelers.
I do as well.
And whoever the hell they play in the South is, they'll take them.
They play the Texans, so they'll
yeah, exactly. I knew it wasn't going to be the Titans or the Colts. So okay, fine. But see, I think the Titans are going to. I think the Titans will challenge it. It'll come down to Titans, Dolphins.
Okay.
I honestly think that Titans, Dolphins, and then whoever Bengals, Ravens, obviously they're a top 2 there. And the thing is that the bottom 2 teams in those 2 divisions, please, those your second place team can go in those 2 each of those divisions might go 4-0 against the 3 and 4 teams.
Yeah.
Whereas I don't, You think the Dolphins will sweep the Jets, and we're both picking the Dolphins to beat the Patriots. Do we pick them to beat the Patriots up there? I mean,
it's definitely going to be a little bit tougher after having months of preparation. You're going to have time to make adjustments. It's going to be tough. I don't think it's out the realm of possibility. I mean, they swept them last year. It's going to be obviously it's going to be a tougher and a cold weather environment. So it's going to be kind of the opposite of what it was. What it's going to be on Sunday, but. There's a lot of key AFC matchups for you. Where we're gonna preview the game and we're gonna say the Dolphins might be kicking themselves in a couple months if they don't win this game. Like the game is important for this week, but it's definitely important for what it might mean in terms of seeding in a couple
every
months.
Game. This is a season in which, and it's really, this is the same in every sport. Actually, I always hate when people say, "Well, late in the season when the games really matter." No. They all matter. I've only seen one win column. I've never seen a win column that says, "Oh, the last months of wins." However, no, that's not the tiebreaker. Okay, every year I used to cover the NHL. Every year you could find a team that essentially lost their playoff spot, not at the end of the season, but with like a bad stretch of games in like October. If these 3 games in October, and they would literally be like 1-goal games. If this win or this tie, this goes differently in October, you are in the playoffs.
Yeah.
And I think that could be whoever is on the outside looking in the AFC this year could very well, they could be sitting there going, damn, that September game against Miami or that September game, that Baltimore game.
That's a week 2 game, but that's a big of a week 2 game as you'll see.
Yeah.
Because of what the playoff ramifications could have.
It could all, when all is said, when we all come out and everything shakes out, and we can all we might find ourselves looking back and going, man,
that was a missed opportunity.
That was the game. That was the 4th down play. They didn't get there, or they did get there. Is what that the whole season kind of turns on. They go to the playoffs and Baltimore doesn't, or Baltimore goes to the playoffs and they don't. It could be that close, and come down to that kind of tiebreaker situation. So
I gotta hold your feet to the fire. Are they in or are they out?
Yeah. Boy. I'm gonna go with out. Because I think there's a better conference record, and a better conference record out of second place in
the North,
the North and the South, North, and probably the South.
I'm not sure about the South, but I think that the West. I think might be tough to edge out one of those teams from the West.
The South is limited. Okay, everybody.
The Jaguars and Texans. I'm not worried about them.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. So then it comes down to the Colts or the Titans. Like, do you think that second place team there is going to be better than the Dolphins?
I don't know. But see, that's the kind of the problem is I'm not so sure they have to be better than the Dolphins,
but they just might have a better record just because of record. Okay, I see.
They're in that division.
I see that. Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. So I'm gonna go without.
But man, I was gonna say that the economy or of the predictions. First half, second half,
there's no balance.
There is no balance.
Negative Herald. You are negative.
I'm ready for it. I'm ready for it. It's whatever.
Yeah.
So
tomatoes and screen and stuff.
Yeah, just throw the tomatoes. Boo, tomatoes. Okay. As we switch into kind of transition to the AFC East standing, so I think we will both have the Bills kind of the top dogs in the division, right? All right. Yeah. Then we have Dolphins number 2. And number 3, are you giving the edge to the Patriots? I'm giving the edge to the Patriots ever so slightly, but I think the Patriots are going to be like a below 500 team. Not below 500 team because you can't really be 500, but I think they're going to be like a below 9-win team.
Yeah, but below the Jets, come on now.
I think you can make the argument that, now we're going big picture FCs, but I think you can make the argument that on paper, the Jets have more talent than the Patriots. More talented players. Now, I don't know if all those young players are necessarily ready to play well enough to, compete on a week in and week out basis. And, there's questions about Zach Wilson and, Robert Saleh. But I think on paper you can make the arguments that the Jets have more talent than the Patriots from 1 to 53. They got a lot. They had a lot of draft picks. Obviously,
Yeah.
all those guys may maybe not be ready for the spotlight, but I mean, if you just look,
Yeah.
like I like their wide receivers better. I like their offensive line just as good. I like their running backs just as good. I like their cornerbacks just as good. I like their defensive line more. I mean, I don't think the Jets are going to be very good, but they have the talent
No.
where it's like if it can manifest in a couple years where they're competitive. But I'll still give the Patriots the edge for this one year.
And that's the point. They're okay in a couple of years, fine. That's a discussion, but now, like, I,
I got you.
it's
All right.
I can go down to Miami Country Day, find 12 people get more of a shot than the Jets, man. Come on.
Oh man, come on.
Um,
That's a little bit off. That's a little bit off. All right. Before we wrap up, we got to do Super Bowl predictions. David, have you thought about that? Are you rolling with the Bills? I think the Bills are maybe a little bit overrated just because everyone is so high on them. You know, they're favored against the Rams in Los Angeles this Thursday. I think that's a little bit too much. Are you taking?
it seems too pat and it seems too obvious,
Yeah, it's a
but
little too obvious for me.
yeah, it kind of is obvious, I think. I mean,
Really?
this this feels like one of those years, like, I think remember it was like the Patriots and the Eagles met in the Super Bowl, not the most recent one, back when it was Brady and
Yeah.
McNabb
McNabb
and
and
Rodney
T.O.
Harrison and T.O.
Yeah.
and those guys. Yeah, it was like that year where it was like, okay, everybody before the season was like, okay, it's probably gonna be the Patriots and the Eagles, and that's just kind of the way it played out without much fuss.
Mhm.
And there are certain years that are like that. Um, yeah, it just seems kind of obvious that it should be the Bills. Um, and now, could Kansas City throw a monkey wrench into that business? Yeah. I don't think Kansas City is going to be as overwhelming as they have been
In
in
years,
recent years,
yeah, without
but
Tyree.
they're still going to be really, really good, and they're going to put up a lot of points. It's going to be hard to beat them. Uh, and yeah, the Bengals, I think, are. It's funny, they're the defending champs, but it still feels
The
like they're
AFC
on the
chips, yeah.
rise.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I feel like they're maybe a bit overrated as well in terms of like where they are. You know, this was a team that when you get to the postseason, I'll say this quick. When you get to the postseason, it's kind of fickle. I mean, you have moments that like a blunder here or there can result in you extending your playoff run. I mean, you look back to that wild card game. I mean, should they have really won that game? You get sacked 9 times. Some of the blunders that Ryan Tannehill made in that game. It's like should they have really won that
yeah.
game? I mean, you can go back to the Chiefs game and in the AFC
Oh,
Championship, like the
the end
Chiefs
of the
just lost.
half.
Yeah, like
Yeah,
if Patrick Mahomes doesn't lose his head, like does that game look a little bit different? I think that
right.
they're very talented. They've obviously fixed the offensive line. You think they fixed the offensive line, but it's tough to come back. And it's like they're not gonna. I mean, they're gonna be on everyone's radar. I mean, everyone's gonna. They're not gonna sneak up on. I think they kind of snuck up on some teams, especially in the late last backhand end of the season. But yeah, I mean, just with the AFC being so wide, I mean, I don't think they're gonna necessarily like be front runners in terms of just blowing everybody out week to week.
And recent history says, except for the Patriots, that the Super Bowl loser
Usually has a pretty
actually,
bad hangover and doesn't even make.
yeah,
Yeah, I think they're gonna make the
it's
playoffs, but I don't think that again. They're not gonna just steamroll because they really didn't steamroll anybody
it,
last year. I mean, they just
no,
had a
no,
really beautiful
it's
run.
but it's I think big part of it is, and this has been this way for a little while, that you get to the Super Bowl and it's obviously so hard to get there, but also just the bigness of it, the massiveness of it,
Hmm.
and then you lose it, and it is so
It's tough to
crushing.
climb back. It's
Player.
tough to climb
It
back.
is really crushing as a player. There are players I've talked to over the years who played on Super Bowl losing teams, and I've asked them, "Hey, did you ever regret playing it?" And they said, "Yeah, there are times in my life as I got as they got farther from their careers, they were like, yeah, okay, I'm glad I played in it." But there
The
were
pain of
a lot of
losing
times
that,
where they were
yeah.
like, really wish I hadn't played in it. It was so crushing to lose. And like I say, New England, of course, bucks the trend. But what happened to Seattle after they lost that one?
Everyone was like they're gonna be back, and
Russell
they
Wilson
weren't
had some
back.
good years, but
It just wasn't the same. Wasn't able to kind of get back to that mountaintop.
And it's really tough. So even though they're a team on the rise, and they should theoretically be peaking even next year, it's going to be interesting to see how they respond to the playoff success they have. It might drive them. It might accelerate their progress, actually, but it's also possible they, kind of crash out a little and have a little tough time early, and don't get it together until mid-season. So if you take them out of the mix, it seems like it should be Buffalo's conference to lose.
So in the NFC though, who are you taking? I think it's maybe a little more wide open. I think got a couple teams at the top, but
yeah, I'm not even that crazy. I'm not even that crazy about the Rams. Honestly, last year it was like the Rams were like one of the as a Super Bowl champion team. I kind of look at them like, all right, I guess.
I mean, if the 49ers defender catches a punt that essentially Matt Stafford essentially threw a punt out to a 49ers defender, and if he catches that in the divisional round, I mean, I think that or was it the divisional or the championship round? I forgot which round, but I mean, if he catches that, if he catches that, I mean, it's the 49ers, and we're having a whole different discussion. And that's why I go back to it. When you get to the postseason, it's very fickle. The slightest thing here or there can result in you going home and you advancing. So you're not really high on the Rams, the Bucks, maybe the Packers without Devontae Adams.
Yeah, I'm not. The Packers seem to disappoint so much, but then again, like the one year they won was the year everybody and his mama got injured. Like every time you thought they were every time they were looking great, that guy, it was like God was just taking stuff away from Aaron Rodgers to just have fun with him, and he dragged him to the Super Bowl, and then he has no energy left for any other playoff game since then. It feels like because I don't.
I mean, the dark horse teams, maybe the Eagles, maybe the Saints. They don't move you.
Oh, please, come on. It moved me. Yeah, moved me away from the TV set. Yeah, I refuse to believe, I don't believe in, Dallas or, yeah, so it might wind up, Tampa Bay again. Could they again? Yeah.
I mean, this is Brady's swan song, allegedly. I mean, it makes sense. The NFL script writers, they always seem to.
Yeah, I think they kind of got themselves together there. They've had a few losses, but it could be Tampa Bay. I just feel the NFC just kind of feels like,
yeah.
And I don't. This doesn't feel like a year with a great team.
Yeah, even the Bills. I think they can be a very, very good team and get hot at the right moment. But I don't. I mean, they have a great quarterback and they have a lot of talent. But I don't know. I just think that it seems too obvious. Like they're the kind of the betting favorites to win the Super Bowl. It almost seems too good to be true.
It just does seem a little pat, but there's a reason that seems pat. So I'll go with Bills versus Tampa.
And then you're taking the Bills. Going against Brady, the biggest game of the year. Last game of his career, potentially.
Yeah, but that's, but I don't. I can see that. I think the Bills take that.
Because the Bills are the better team.
I think the Bills are the better team from the better conference, and that's the way it usually works out. The best team from the best conference usually wins the Super Bowl, and I think the AFC is top to bottom better than the NFC.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. The NFC really just. I mean, I'll watch. It's not like I won't watch them, but there's nothing. There's nothing there. It's like when my grandmother used to make baked chicken. It's like, all right, fine.
I like baked chicken, man. You get
Oh, man.
some nice seasoning on it, or some
Uh,
rice or something like that.
that was when I'd be like, can we please order Jack's Pizza? Can we do something else? But no, it was like, all right, I guess. All right, whatever.
I hear you. I agree with you. I think the Bucks, even with all the questions about Brady, the offensive line, new coach, Todd Bowles, I think that they kind of outlast the group. There's a lot of change, turnover in the NFC. I'm going out with a little different pick in the AFC, and I already know I'm gonna get called out for this, so I'm ready for it again. It's gonna be my mentions are gonna be a cesspool this week. But I'm going with the Ravens. I'm going with the Ravens to beat the Bucks. I know Baltimore bias. I know. But hear me out. Hear me out. Hear me out. Halfway through the year, the Ravens were the number one seed in the AFC. They didn't have their starting left tackle, three of their top running backs, one of their top cornerbacks, and Lamar was essentially like dragging that team, by his legs and his right arm. He gets hurt. Obviously, the Dolphins game, he looked terrible. That was kind of like the beginning of the end. But he gets hurt in week 12 or 13 against the Browns. They don't win a single game after that. They finished 8-9. So they were 8-3, I believe, and they finished 8-9. They're gonna get all those guys back. Another year of Lamar looking better. Apparently, he's gotten thicker. He's throwing it well. There's some questions about their wide receivers, but I think they're going to kind of tap back into that 2019 approach where they just ran roughshod against everybody. And if they get all their guys on defense back, I mean, they were like the worst passing defense in the NFL last year. I mean, if they get all their corners back, they got a new safety in Marcus Williams. I think that, and they're playing a pretty easy schedule because they finished last in their division last year. I think we could see where they kind of have a bounce back year and they kind of, I don't want to say catch people by surprise because I think everyone has their attention, their respect. But I think that we could see a scenario where, you got all this stuff about Lamar and his contract too. I think we could see a scenario where, he kind of has that fairy tale run. And it's going to be hard in the AFC. I mean, you can really pick like 6 teams in the AFC and be like, I could see them, making a run. But I'm gonna go out on a limb here and kind of do a little bit of projection. And I'm gonna say Ravens over Bucks.
You going out on a limb. You barely leaving your front door, man. You barely leaving your mama's front door.
I mean, hey, everyone's going with the stereotypical picks: Rams, Bucks. I mean, Rams, Bills, and Bill. I mean, I don't know. You gotta be a little different, especially. I think this year, I think it's more wide open than it's ever been. I think there are, as I look at it, I think there are like 10 teams where you could say if one of these teams made the Super Bowl, you wouldn't be like completely astonished. I don't think you usually go into a year where there's like 10 teams, maybe like 5 or 6. I think there's 10 teams, like maybe like 6 from the AFC and 4, maybe 3 from the NFC, where you're like you wouldn't be surprised at all. So I'm gonna kind of go out on a limb. I know South Florida, they're gonna hate that pick.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's a limb that's in the front yard you grew up in.
Hey, I was gonna say I have a little more knowledge. Like it's an informative pick. I'll say it's an informative pick.
It is. I understand you're making the case. You've made a case, but yeah, okay, all right.
Not high on Lamar.
I just think Baltimore style offense would, and especially what they did in like 2019. Boy,
It's not one of those things where it's a stay, but
it just seems to bog down in the
I
playoffs.
think, and this is more a projection. I mean, it's a prediction. It's a projection. I think that Lamar will make it work. I mean, they've got. I don't need to go into the nitty gritty, but I mean, they have guys who they think can step up. They got this really nice tight end, Isaiah Likely, who looked great in the preseason. I mean, he's essentially Mike Gesicki. He's essentially a big slot receiver that plays tight end. I mean, he could potentially be a number 3 kind of target for him. I don't know. It's a projection. I think that when you were the most injured team in the NFL last year and you were still able to win 8 games and your quarterback missed, a quarter of the season, I just kind of do a little projection and say, hey, I think that you're going to be able to bounce back if all those guys are healthy and you play to your capability. So that's my, my prediction. Maybe I'll come back in 4 months or whatever, and I'll be able to, be like, hey, I got it right. Probably not, but that's why we do this. That's what makes it all
fun. And it's fun, and all fun. So yeah, I mean, that's the thing. There are so many teams that there are no great teams. There's no teams that look great right now. Maybe there are teams that
maybe the Bills, but that's TBD.
They look like a very good team. They look like a very good team. They look like a 9 in a league of 7s and 8s.
Yeah.
I don't see a 10 out there. I don't see a lot of, I don't even see a lot of 9.5s.
Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, I mean, yeah, it's entirely possible they don't get it together, or they get upset in the playoffs, or just things don't. They get off to a slow start. Things don't happen really good. Starts sniping, and you get the Real Housewives of Buffalo going, and and then things don't. You get a real disappointing season, which we've all seen happen to various teams. And I just don't see anybody. The NFC, like I say, it just leaves me like, name a team, and I'm just kind of like,
yeah, like
all right, whatever. Yeah, okay. The contenders is have you going, what? Okay, and the rest of them just have me going, please, just don't.
We'll see y'all next year.
We'll see don't. Yeah,
thanks for coming. We'll see y'all.
I watch you on the highlights. I watch you on the highlights. I watch you on Red Zone channel, but don't litter my TV. Don't litter my my screen on a regular basis, like for a steady thing on Sunday afternoons after I get off work. So yeah, which actually this makes for an interesting season though.
Yeah, because it's so wide open.
Yeah, and it makes for an interesting season unless the Bills go suddenly come out and there's 7-0, and then everybody else is sitting there at 4-3 in the rest of the conference, or if you got a couple of 0-7s and you're going, okay,
we'll see you in February.
Yeah. So yeah, it's but hey, it's start of the season. It's exciting. It's fun.
Makes it all fun. The projections. I'm just glad we got real football to talk about. Tired about talking fake football, what could happen. Now we can finally see what does happen.
Yeah,
I'm excited. I'm excited for it. Excited to keep on doing this podcast with you throughout the entire season. As we see where this Dolphins season takes us, should be an exciting one. But that brings us to the end of another edition of the Dolphins In Depth podcast. I want to thank you all for tuning in. We have the highs and the lows. We both think the Dolphins are going to take care of the Patriots this week, but we don't think they're going to make the playoffs. But we think they're going to win a lot of games, but maybe not enough. We'll see. We'll be there all the way to capture it all at the Miami Herald. You guys enjoy this weekend. I hope you have as much fun as I will watching and covering this game. And we'll see you again next week to recap Dolphins football for real. But until then, you guys take care. See ya.